M from the Blue Roof Path, and today we're talking about intention. So before you begin anything that you're really going to commit to or any kind of change that you're wanting to make in your life, having a true intention backing it is going to be incredibly important. Why? If you just dive right in and say, oh yeah, I'll do that, sometimes you're floating on that edge of excitement. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it also might not be something that will sustain what you're wanting to do, especially if you're wanting to do something that is going to ask you to create a significant shift in how you've been being, or if it requires effort and work. So an intention will help you sustain. It will fuel the effort, it'll fuel the work involved, and it'll fuel the discomfort. Maybe I'll say it'll soften the discomfort a bit of you creating that shift, because shifts are not always comfortable. Big inhale. Intention. Intention's a tricky thing because sometimes you think your intention is one thing and it's actually something else. What does that mean? All right. So let's say that you come at something and you have an intention and you say, we're going to use self-care. So I'm going to practice self-care in my life because I deserve it. And your intention is, I will practice self-care because I deserve it. Okay, great. Yes, of course you deserve self-care. But is that really your deepest heartfelt intention? So I added a piece there. Heartfelt intention. Do you really believe that you deserve it? Big inhale. Because maybe you're practicing self-care because you're not giving yourself rest, you're not feeding yourself well, you are, maybe you're in a job or relationship or some other activity in your life that's not fulfilling to you. Why are you in those things? Is it because you truly want to be there? Or are you not allowing yourself to drink water or not taking care of yourself in terms of your physical, mental, or spiritual health or what you're putting in your body? Is that because you believe you are worth it or because you're believing that you're not? So sometimes when we're not taking care of ourselves, it's because we believe we're not worth it. And if your intention is to practice self-care because you deserve it and are worth it, but deep down you're believing that you're not, that is not a real heartfelt intention. That's a statement that you've made without any true backing. Now, that's the first step. Don't discount that. So keep that going, but then do the work to see, do I really and truly believe that I deserve this? And if so, why is that my intention? And is that my deepest heartfelt intention? So let's talk about that a little bit more. A heartfelt intention is one that often is going to have an emotional response with it. You might get tears, you might gasp, you might laugh. It's usually going to have some kind of emotional element with it, and often it comes out of nowhere. You did not anticipate that being your intention. It's much more spirit-led instead of ego and mind-led. So why you're doing something in your life, so let's be very clear. Everything that you're doing in your life is your choice, no matter what it is. If it's a practice of self-care, your choice. If it's not a practice of self-care, your choice. So your intention is what's fueling your choices in your life. That's why you want to make all of your intentions really, really solid and from a space of heart-centeredness. Because if not, then you may be going through your life making choices that are really from ego, fear, and mind. And ego, fear, and mind are all really the same thing and go hand in hand in many ways. So think about it, just take a breath and think about it for a moment. How much of what I'm doing in my life is coming from choices based off fear? So, are you practicing self-care from a deep space of love, from an intention that was made in that space of love? Or are you practicing self-care because the ego is telling you that you're wrong for not practicing self-care? Or are you in an aspect of expectation where you think you should? Or someone else thinks that you should, so you're doing it. Or you think that you have to. Or I need it. If I could just have this, if I could just have more bath time for myself, have more quiet time, if I could just, eat better, if I could just drink more water, if I could just have my home the way I want it, if I could just get this to happen at work, then I would be happy. Then I would be fulfilled. Those are not real intentions. They are from the space of mind talk, mind chatter, and they're from fear and ego. And that will not sustain a healthy and ongoing, effortless self-care practice. So ongoing and effortless. If your self-care practice is fleeting, if maybe every so often you kind of do some stuff, that's not ongoing and that's not a practice. That's an action every now and then. If your self-care practice is exhausting to you and is not effortless, it's not a self-care practice. That's why asking yourself these questions, doing this self-inquiry work is so important, because it gets you down to what's really true for you, and it helps you get out of the way and get the ego out of the way and get the mind out of the way, so you can come from that space of the heart. Right? Yes, but how? Right? I get it. I love a worksheet and I love a handout, and that's what I've made for working on intention. And really, this worksheet is so simple that even looking at it on paper, it almost seems ridiculous to have it be a worksheet. Yet, so many of us won't sit down and ask ourselves why we actually want what we want, or why we're making the decisions and choices that we're making. So, worksheet it is. The self-care aspect of this is very important, because knowing why you want to take care of yourself changes the game, but also you might find that why you want to practice self-care doesn't actually have as much to do with you completely as you thought. Let's look at that. To practice setting intentions, real intentions, do this work in a space where you can be in that soft meditative space. So if you've just come in from work and you're scattered and all over the place and, oh my God, I've got to cook dinner, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, oh, I'm supposed to do that intention work. And you rush through all these things. Maybe you rush through making dinner, you rush through eating dinner, you rush through, getting the kids or getting the pets or getting the whatever it is done. And then you just go and sit down and you're already exhausted and your mind is exhausted and maybe even all over the place. That's not the space to do this work in, all right? This work is meant to be done from the space of stillness and that meditative space. It's also the perfect kind of thing to do after a yoga practice. So make sure that when you do this, you have time to sit and be with it, and then be with it. It can be so easy to get distracted when doing this kind of work. So let's say you sit down with your worksheet. You're like, okay, I'm going to do my worksheet. Oh, but I don't have a pen. Take the pen in there when you go do it. Get set up. And then you look at it and you start reading. You start getting a little poked in some ways. Oh, I should probably post a picture on Instagram that I'm doing my worksheet. So out comes the phone, and then you see something and you just start scrolling through. And 20 minutes later, you're like, oh, I'm on my phone. Put it down. You go back to the worksheet and realize you never even posted the picture to Instagram of you doing the worksheet, and the cycle starts all over again because you picked the phone back up. Sound familiar? I encourage you to leave your phone outside of the room on silent. Yes, that is what I said. Leave your phone outside of the room on silent when you are doing your personal growth work. You're worth it. Whatever's on that phone can wait. All right. So soft, gentle, meditative space where you're in the mind, body, spirit energy to actually do the work and take it in. I always encourage you connecting to your breath first, getting very grounded. If you want to turn it into something a little more special for yourself and light a candle or incense, please go ahead and do that. Do whatever you need, but don't get attached to that pomp and circumstance. You don't have to have a candle or incense or anything else. What you need is a pen or a pencil and the worksheet and maybe some extra paper and you. That's it. You don't even have to have anything else in the room if you've got the floor. Okay? All right, let's get into this worksheet. It's incredibly simple. When you're asking yourself why you want something, you just ask why. Why do I want it? And then line per line, lay out because. I want this because. And then you just keep breaking that down. I like to do this worksheet in a sort of diagonal stagger step. So I want this because. And then I sort of swing it back over to the other side of the paper like a typewriter. And I keep breaking it down that way. And why I do that is so that I can see how some things evolve and how some things go together, because one because may lead to another, and then that step ends and I start over. It also helps me start to see patterns of why I'm either wanting something or what my mind chatter is. You do it whatever way is a fit for you. I do encourage you to do it line per line, however, instead of in paragraph form. But if that's not a fit for you, do what you need. And it's just that simple. You're simply asking yourself why, and then because. Now the worksheet has a limited number of lines. Feel free to not even use the worksheet. Feel free to use it as a guide, as a template, and just do this work on paper. And that way you can really get into the nitty-gritty of it and go deep. When I'm doing this, I might use a lot of paper because my mind chatter might be the first chunk of because that I go through. And it's not actually my intention. It may be ego talking. It may be me putting down answers that I think I'm supposed to, instead of really getting to my heartfelt intention. So, I choose to practice self-care because, and just writing those lines and not stopping. And one thing you may find is that some other phrases come up for you, like because, so that, in order to, and that's fine. And I've put those on the sheet as well. So if those phrases come in or something similar, then go with that. But here's what not to go with. I should, I shouldn't, I have to, and I need to. Those are false, and they will trip you up every time. Also, if what you're writing has to do with someone else, nip it in the bud. Mark it out, regroup, reground, and go back to what's true for you. Because if you're writing something like, I choose to practice self-care because no one else will take care of me, that's mind chatter. That is not intention. I'm choosing to practice self-care so so-and-so will see me do it. And then maybe they'll practice self-care too. Now, it is beautiful to be an example, but if you want to be an example so someone will see you being an example, that is not true leadership, that's codependency. We'll be talking about that later. So if you start noticing these things you're writing mind chatter down, put this worksheet down. If you don't already have the Blue Truth worksheet, contact me and we'll talk about that. If you have it, go do Blue Truth work, because you're a lot in mind chatter and that will keep you from working on your deepest intention. All right, another big inhale. I'm going to break down a quick intention step so that you kind of have an idea of what this looks like. So I choose to practice self-care because I haven't been taking care of myself. I choose to practice self-care because I'm worth it. I choose to practice self-care because I want to help people change their lives. I choose to practice self-care because I don't have enough energy at the end of the day. I choose to practice self-care because. So that's the basic way. That's the most simple way. And I talked about those stagger steps. So let me touch on what that's like. I choose to practice self-care because I haven't been practicing self-care. Why haven't I been practicing self-care? See how the game just changed? So you can also go back to those lines and break them down. It's a little bit more of an advanced version of this worksheet, of this work, but if you choose to go that deep, go on, go deep. Now that's also probably going to tie into a lot more of that mind chatter, so you would need to be able to do the truth work to stay with what you actually know to be true and what's mind chatter. What you may find is that you get down to something really, really deep. And so one of the heartfelt intentions for me, for why I practice self-care, is so that I can be my authentic self, so that I can live in my truth, so that I am an example to others, but more importantly, so that I live my life in my truth. Why? Because my life is so much more connecting. I am much more connecting because when I am practicing self-care, I'm more loving in my life. And I want to be more loving because when I'm practicing self-care, it helps get me out of blame and resentment. It keeps me from getting in that codependency when I think someone else should be taking care of me, because I don't have to crave that anymore because I'm taking care of myself. So one of my heartfelt intentions is I'm practicing self-care so that I can be loving toward other people and loving toward myself. And that's a much deeper heartfelt intention than I choose to practice self-care because no one else will do it for me. All right. So I'm going to post the PDF and you'll be able to see it and work with it. It's very, very simple and there are instructions on the PDF. If you have questions, ask, and good journey to you, friends. Namaste.